Did you know that Max Verstappen could trigger a release clause to leave Red Bull and join Mercedes in 2026? After a technical disaster in Austria, alarm bells are ringing. But the most shocking thing isn't the failure of the RB21, but what Verstappen is planning to do in the wake of it. Leave your opinion in the comments. Should Verstappen leave Red Bull or give them a second chance? Could we be seeing the first steps of the end of an era at Red Bull? In this video, we'll break down the technical meltdown at the 2025 Austrian GP, the consequences for Red Bull, and how this could hasten Max Verstappen's departure from the team. Red Bull arrived at the 2025 Austrian Grand Prix expecting to dominate. This wasn't just another race. This was their home circuit, the Red Bull Ring, a venue where they had historically shown and where fans hoped to see another demonstration of the team's technical and tactical superiority. But what was supposed to be a celebration quickly turned into a nightmare. From practice to the race, everything started to go wrong. The RB21 showed alarming signs of instability, and what happened next not only surprised analysts but also raised deep doubts about the immediate future of the team and its main figure, Max Verstappen. Saturday was a turning point. Weather conditions began to play a crucial role, with track temperatures exceeding 45 degrees, something that would normally test any car. But in the case of the RB21, it was the trigger for a complete collapse. Max Verstappen, accustomed to maximizing the potential of any car he's given, was completely overwhelmed by the car's erratic behavior. Every lap was different. Every corner felt like a battle against a car that seemed to follow no logical pattern. He said it bluntly. Everything fell apart, and when a four-time world champion admits that, it's because the situation is truly critical. The most serious thing is that this wasn't an isolated accident. The car had been showing deficiencies since the beginning of the season, but Austria exposed those flaws in a brutal and definitive way. Helmut Marko's statement at the end of the weekend was as stark as it was revealing. A performance like this forces us to rule out the championship. For many, that was the exact moment Red Bull went from being a contender to becoming a team in crisis. The words weren't just an emotional reaction. They were public confirmation that something deep inside the team is failing. The RB21 didn't collapse in Austria due to bad luck. What happened at the Red Bull Ring was the clearest manifestation of a problem the team has been struggling with since the start of the season, an extremely limited and difficult-to-manage technical concept. What appeared to be an aggressive design focused on maximum performance ended up being a double-edged sword. Under ideal conditions, the car can be competitive, but as soon as the track heats up or the wind changes slightly, all performance disappears. That was exactly what happened during Saturday's qualifying in Austria. The RB21's design prioritizes a very narrow operating window. That is, the car only performs well under very specific technical parameters. Temperature, downforce, tire pressure, and suspension settings all have to align almost perfectly. Any slight alteration to these factors can severely affect the overall balance of the car. And in today's Formula One, where conditions constantly change between sessions, having such a sensitive car becomes a structural disadvantage. Max Verstappen explained it clearly. Even small adjustments that shouldn't change anything completely alter the car's behavior lap after lap. During Saturday morning's free practice, in cooler temperatures, Verstappen showed competitive pace. But as soon as the track began to warm up before qualifying, the car became unpredictable. Every corner required a different correction. Every braking became a risk. This left Max without confidence. And in a sport like this, when a driver can't anticipate how their car will react, they don't just lose time, they lose complete control of its performance. Most worrying is that not even the engineers found immediate solutions to stabilize the car over the weekend. Pierre Watch, Red Bull's technical director, had already warned about this risk before the season began. He explained that by seeking to maximize the car's potential, it compromised handling and consistency. The logic was simple. If you make the car as fast as possible under perfect conditions, you'll sacrifice its performance in less ideal conditions. And that's exactly what happened. The RB21's design, far from adapting, punishes even minor changes on the track, making it an extremely difficult car to set up correctly from race to race. In addition to the operating window dilemma, there's an even more worrying problem, the deficit in pure performance. Helmut Marko quantified this disadvantage in alarming figures. According to his data, Red Bull is losing nearly 0.3 per lap in qualifying and up to half a second per lap in the race, particularly against McLaren. In Formula One, that difference is abysmal. These numbers cannot be offset by strategy or driver talent. They require a profound reconstruction of the car's concept, and that can't be achieved in weeks. Adrian Newey's departure from Red Bull has been one of the hardest technical blows the team has ever suffered. Although his departure was announced in May 2024, the real impact has been felt in full force this 2025 season. The RB21 is the first car fully developed without Newey's direct influence, and the results are evident. The car is not only unstable and difficult to handle, but it lacks the technical stamp that made Red Bull the benchmark in F1 in recent years. When a team loses its chief architect, imbalance becomes inevitable, and that is precisely what we are seeing today. Newey was not just another designer. He was the mind behind the most successful aerodynamic concepts of the hybrid era, someone who understood better than anyone how to balance technical aggression with practical reliability. His experience, intuition, and ability to innovate in areas where other teams followed conservative formulas made the difference in every car that bore his signature. When he left a void that Red Bull has yet to fill. The team has technical talent, yes, but without his leadership and strategic vision, the RB21's conceptual flaws have gone from manageable problems to structural failures. Pierre Wache, who took on a more visible role after Newey's departure, has faced the enormous challenge of keeping a design philosophy afloat without its main creator. Although his ability as an engineer is proven, the challenge of continuing Newey's legacy in the midst of regulatory transition, with new technical conditions and an increasingly competitive grid, has exposed him. The lack of consistency in the RB21's development reflects not only the car's mechanical issues, but also a disconnect between key departments within the team. Something that simply didn't happen with Newey in the design room. The most critical aspect is not only the lack of immediate results, but the loss of internal confidence that begins to spread. When a team goes through a technical crisis, the first thing to suffer is morale. And without Newey as a pillar of technical security, Verstappen and other team members have begun to question the direction of the project. What was once a cohesive environment with a clear vision for development now seems fragmented. The departure of the genius behind the success has not only been a loss of talent, but also of leadership, and this is profoundly affecting the team's stability. For years, Max Verstappen has been the absolute pillar of the Red Bull project. Not only because of his talent behind the wheel, but because he represented total confidence in a team that seemed invincible. But that stability is beginning to crack. What happened in Austria was more than a bad race. It was a warning sign that could mark a turning point in his relationship with the team. Verstappen not only suffered the frustration of an uncontrollable car, but also witnessed how Red Bull failed to offer him a competitive package at the most critical moment of the season. And that, for a driver of his caliber, is unacceptable. Verstappen's contractual situation has added even more pressure. According to sources close to the paddock, Max has an exit clause that could be activated if Red Bull doesn't remain in the top 3 of the Constructors' Championship at the end of the season. The team currently sits in 4th place. That reality turns what was once a mere rumor into a tangible possibility. For the first time in years, there is a scenario in which Verstappen not only could, but would legally be allowed to leave Red Bull without penalty. And that has begun to shake things up in rival garages, especially at Mercedes. But beyond the contractual aspect, what's at stake here is Verstappen's confidence in the team's technical project. With Adrian Newey's departure and the lack of progress with the RB21, the Dutchman has begun to question the overall direction Red Bull is taking. Inside sources have revealed that Verstappen has been increasingly critical of some of the team's technical departments and has even called for structural changes if they want to retain him in the future. Among the demands is talk of limiting or even removing some of the power Christian Horner currently holds within the organization, reflecting an unprecedented level of tension. These kinds of statements and positions are no coincidence. In modern F1, elite drivers don't just look for a fast car, they look for solid projects, stable environments, and a clear long-term vision. And Verstappen, who has already tasted what it means to dominate a championship with authority, isn't willing to back down. When a driver of that caliber starts talking about broken trust, questionable decisions, and ineffective leadership, it's not simply a passing frustration. It's a symptom of a relationship that is fraying from within. Added to this is a future technical concern that cannot be ignored: Red Bull's power unit for the 2026 regulations. Although it hasn't yet been track-tested, Verstappen's own entourage has expressed serious doubts about its performance. There are fears that it could become a structural weakness that would prevent him from fighting for the championship just as a new era in Formula One begins. The possibility of seeing Max Verstappen in a suit other than the Red Bull one is no longer science fiction. Within the paddock, there is now a lot of talk about mutual interest between Verstappen and Mercedes. What once seemed like an impossible maneuver due to Max's loyalty to the Milton Keynes team is now gaining momentum due to the growing internal crisis at Red Bull. Mercedes boss Toto Wolff has been clear since the beginning of the season. He is monitoring all the market developments and has made no secret of his admiration for Verstappen. In this context, informal talks have already begun, and both parties are reportedly exploring the conditions for a potential deal. Mercedes, unlike Red Bull, is undergoing a quieter but steady restructuring process. The German team is not at its best sportingly, but maintains a solid technical culture and a highly professional infrastructure. For Verstappen, that kind of environment could represent exactly what he needs at this stage of his career: stability, long-term resources, and a new project that will restore his confidence. While the team isn't currently leading the championship, the 2026 projection, with the regulation change and the new power unit, could be the trump card that convinces Max to make the jump. In addition, there's a psychological aspect that shouldn't be underestimated. Verstappen is a born competitor. He doesn't just want to win, he wants to dominate. And right now, that ambition is no longer fully aligned with what Red Bull can offer him. If he perceives that the team has ceased to be the technical benchmark on the grid, then he'll look to be where he can make a difference. Mercedes represents that opportunity to be at the center of a new winning cycle. Not as the heir to a dominant team, but as the builder of his own era within a new structure. In short, what happened in Austria wasn't just a poor sporting result. It was public confirmation that Red Bull is facing a profound technical crisis, possibly the most serious since its arrival in Formula One. The RB21 is no longer competitive. Adrian Newey's departure has destabilized the team's structure, and strategic decisions are beginning to lose coherence. All of this is directly impacting Max Verstappen, who no longer appears as the driver who blindly trusts his surroundings, but as someone who measures every step and calmly evaluates his options. The truth is that Max Verstappen remains the center of the universe in today's Formula One. His talent, his competitive mindset, and his track record make him the most decisive figure on the grid. And precisely because of that, every decision he makes in the coming months could completely reshape the championship's power structure. If he decides to stay, Red Bull will have to rebuild around him. But if he leaves, they won't just lose their most successful driver, they'll lose the symbol of an era that, until recently, seemed untouchable. Now I want to know your opinion. Do you think Verstappen should stay and fight to regain glory with Red Bull? Or do you think it's the right time to seek a new challenge with another team? Leave it in the comments, and be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications.